Thank you. I've always been a curious kid. I grew up single parent family, just love being around adults, and I guess I've always been curious as why people do what they do, but also kind of why naughty people do naughty things. So I kind of went to university to study psychology, wanted to be a criminal profiler, and that led me to joining the police. So I joined the police at the age of 21 as a civilian, and I was very fortunate enough to try various different roles, and one of the things I was able to try was become a coach. And coaching was kind of my style of leadership anyway, so it seemed to kind of make sense. And I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with helping people. Um, it was deeper than mindset. It was deeper than achieving goals. It was just making some real life transformations. So I really saw the power of coaching, and so I started coaching in the evenings after my day job for several years. I created a community on Facebook called "We Are Always Better Than Yesterday," and it just kind of grew from there. And yeah, in 2019, I handed in my notice to my police job, and I now do "Always Better Than Yesterday" full time, which is it's as it says on the tin. Really, it's being in people's corner, helping people be better every single day in their heart, in their mind, in their leadership. And yeah, I feel really blessed to be able to help many people.
Wow, that's incredible. So let me say, I had a quick question. I think that's a really beautiful way to put it. And I think we should always, kind of strive whether to make our day a little bit better or other people's day a little bit better, just kind of reaching out because you never know who needs it. Do you have any advice? Because I know a really big thing that people can get stuck on is like, oh, I can't contribute anything to anyone. Like I'm so worthless. I can't do anything. And we all know that's not true. You can always do something. Is there any tip for someone who might feel stuck? Like, oh, there's no way I could ever contribute and make someone's day better, reach out or try and help people.
100%. And we always miss the opportunity just because we don't think that they exist. And we always think like helping people is in the big grand gestures.
Yes.
And it's my friend Jonathan Darling, he talks about micro moments and massive impact. And it's in the micro moments, it's in those small moments when we are able just say something nice to someone, or hold the door open for someone, or just, I was thinking about you, checking in, messaging, or a smile. This is the thing that you're really good at, is you always bring a smile to the conversations in the Go Giver, or you bring something useful or helpful. And my simple thing is that we have more than we realize we do, and it's right there in our hands. There's this scripture where Moses is talking about, who am I to be the one to do this? And, what do I have? And God just says, well, what's that in your hand? He reminds him that you have all that you need. And I think that's so true of us. We have all that we need to make a positive difference into the lives of other people. We just have to have the two things: A, the heart to do that, and B is just look for the opportunity. Because if we look, we will find it. So that's my advice to anybody, is that you have exactly everything that you possibly need. Just take the time to really look for those opportunities, because you'll find them. And I truly believe that the purpose of life is to find out what our gifts are. We all have something unique to ourselves that we just love to do. And it becomes purpose when we use those to serve those in the world who already need it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. If you have a kind of an open mind and open heart when dealing in the world, it'll be a lot easier to recognize that, oh, this something I did that might have helped someone. And sometimes we'll never know if we helped someone, but if we know we did something a little bit better than maybe if we did nothing, then that's definitely a step in the right direction.
Yeah, it's really mind-blowing, because
Yeah.
like, you have a podcast, and when I started putting my podcast out in the early days, you never really know who's listening. And I'd
Yeah.
get stopped in the street by someone, I listened to your podcast. Oh my, it was incredible. I'm like, what? And like, so you just never know. You just never know the ripple effect and the impact of what you put out into the world. And my encouragement to anyone listening is just to start. Have no expectation except to connect positively with one person at a time, and you'll have no idea what that could do for someone.
Yeah, definitely. Can you see me and hear me okay? It seems my internet connection is a little bit unstable, so I want to make sure you're still
I can hear you fine. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Good. It would be I remember I did one podcast and his connection just dropped in the middle of the call. So I was sitting there for
Yeah.
like 5 minutes. I was like, where are you? And he's like, I'm coming, I'm coming. It was really Wi-Fi's so funny. Yeah, well, that's really incredible. And I kind of shifted it a little bit in the past few years. Is there anything that you'd say either to your younger self in the past, or maybe just the younger generation kind of going forward?
Yeah, I had to really think about this one because, like you and I said off air, I've come to the realization that I cannot love who I am now and hate the journey that's got me here. And there are many things, believe me, that I wish I could change. There are many things that I wish I didn't have to go through as a kid. But the first thing I'd absolutely do is just be there for him. Like 17-year-old Ryan was going through the world. He'd been abandoned by two kind of father figures. And I had a really positive and optimistic mum, and she just kept our family driving forward. So I never really sat around feeling sorry for myself. But the problem that created is that I didn't really know that I was loved. I didn't feel overly loved in a way that I guess I, as a young man, needed to be. So I would then show up for love, not from love.
Mm,
And what that really means is that I was probably a bit arrogant. I probably would start telling people how good I was and all the things I was achieving, not because I thought I was better than anyone else, but because I really just wanted someone to validate me, someone
yeah.
to appreciate me, and someone just to say, buddy, you're doing a great job. So I'd probably say that to myself, stop trying so hard. You're doing great. Your pain is going to lead you into such purpose in your life. All the good things are coming. You know, learn how to lead from love, not for love. Um, yeah, man, I'll just be there for him. Like he's a good kid. I look back, he's a good kid. He's got a big heart, cheeky sense of humor, but he definitely tried too hard. And yeah, that's what I'd say to him.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I think that's a huge thing for a lot of kids or a lot of people in general is that they really want to feel recognized. And I've definitely come across some people who I can see that in them. And it doesn't hurt for me. Just be like, hey, I see that you're doing a great job and I really appreciate it. And
Yeah,
keep on doing, you're doing an amazing job. And sometimes you just kind of need those like few words of encouragement because no one really says it. And sometimes people are like, oh, well, it's kind of like weaved in the words, it's in context, subtext, and whatever. But I'm like, okay, but are you going to say the words? Are you going to actually reach out and say them? Like,
100%.
you mean them, but does the other person really know you mean them? So I think
Yeah,
that is really important.
I agree with you. And it's, and the thing is as well, you're being young, and you've got many other kids like in school settings, universities, with they're just human beings with unmet needs. And yet being that young, everything just feels so personal.
Mm,
Everything just, whether people are being bullied or being mean, like, I was subject to a number of ridiculing comments. And what did Ryan Hartley do? He passed them on. Shamefully, I would pass that on to other people. And in my advice back to that kid is just like, you don't need to do that. Like, A, that's not personal. And B is just take yourself away. Don't react.
yes.
I'm trying to instill this sense in my kids. I have a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old, and I'm just trying every single day to help them feel so full of love that they can then take a step back and view the world with compassion, with empathy. That if someone is choosing to be unkind, then it's not a reflection of them, but
Mm-hmm.
more of an invitation to go and be helpful and useful to those maybe that aren't as full in their love tank, shall we say.
Yeah, that's really important. That's something that I grew up, I kind of learned on myself. I used to work in customer service. I used to work in a restaurant when I was really, really young. So like 11 to 16. I started working a little bit before, but 11 was when I first started working like the counter consistently. And people can be very mean, especially to an 11-year-old. And that's something I
Wow.
really had to learn is like, hey, these people are being really mean to me, but it doesn't really mean a reflection on me.
Yeah.
Maybe they do have valid criticisms that they're delivering in a not so nice way. So if there's something I see, oh yeah, I can definitely understand. I should be faster when doing this. Okay, take that from that. But the rest of it, I don't need to hear. It's not really me. It doesn't really affect me. I can't curse a customer out when I'm 11 or ever. So it's definitely like, okay, taking it. It's not about me. It's not really about them either. It's just kind of taking it if I need to learn something, learn it. But if not, I just kind of move on with my day. And I allow myself to get kind of sad for like 5 minutes and then I move on. Okay.
Yeah,
And
that's powerful.
I'm good now.
Many adults don't get to that point of wisdom, so it is a lifelong challenge because there's an inherent response in all of us to try and react to what's said rather than take a step back and go, hang on a minute, I know the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember like very vividly, a customer was like, don't interrupt me. And I was like, because she was talking to my aunt, and then I waited for the pause in the conversation, like, "Oh, the order's ready," and then she's like, "Don't interrupt me," and I was like, "Sorry," and then she's like, and then like a few minutes later, I'm like, "Your order's ready again," and she's like, "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" And I was like,
Oh, come on.
I was like, but I was like, "You're right. I'm sorry. Here's your order. You can pay for it now." And then I told my like cousin and my mom later. I was like, she's really weird. And they're like, "Why don't you just like say something back? Like, oh, I'm just a kid, or you're talking." And I was like, it's not the point of the conversation. It's not really, obviously this lady's kind of in a bad mood. It doesn't really make sense for me to contribute to her bad day by yelling at her. That's not very nice or kind. It's not going to reflect well on my aunt. Keep in mind, I was like 12 at the time. I was I was like, it's not going to reflect well on my aunt, on the business, so it's really not worth it. So I told them, like, oh yeah, I guess that makes sense. I was like, yeah, you kind of just have to live with it and move on.
Yeah, that's so wise.
It was definitely hard to learn at the time when you're very young and people are very mean. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking a few minutes out of your day and sharing some incredible wisdom. I really appreciate it. Is there any last thing you'd kind of like to throw out there before I wrap it up?
I just want to reiterate the more that we can lead from love rather than for love. And I think, what does that really mean? We live in a world that plays to our lack. This consumerism, capitalism, it wouldn't exist if the message ultimately was, hey, you have all that you need within inside you. And that, my friend, is the truth. That anyone listening to this has gifts and skills and talents within them. They have strengths. They have things that they care about. They have things that they love to do. Just the world has tried to shape us in many different ways that